over half of the world's population now living in urban areas. Making cities safer is a long-term challenge that must be achieved. Cities, as engines of national growth, are dynamic in their governance systems and capacities. Throughout history, disaster is a sudden calamitous event bringing great damage or loss that brings great misfortune that has disrupted human activities, living and life. Extreme and changing climate, earthquakes and emergencies triggered by man-made hazards are increasingly putting pressure on people and threatening the prosperity of countries.
Disaster is a life-threatening issue that one way or the other, if that locality does not have the capacity to take care of it, it could need the external people to come and assist. That is what is called disaster. It's far different in terms of degree and severity to a situation we call emergency.
A city-state like Lagos with over 21 million people is at risk because it is highly urbanized and dense with complex systems of interconnected services. As such, she faces a growing number of issues that drive disaster risk.
Lagos State, apart from Lagos State is the metropolitan, it's also a cosmopolitan. Don't forget that Lagos State is the nerve center in terms of the productivity. When you are looking at Nigeria holistically, it's the nerve center where a lot of business, trading. We have two ports. We have international airports. We have local airports. There are a lot of urbanization. There are a lot of people coming in here, and to top the whole thing, we have a good governance. A good governance in Lagos State will definitely attract a lot of people in there, and that is why Lagos State is susceptible to a lot of things. And if you look at the topography of the state itself, it makes it vulnerable to disaster or emergency.
Disaster is an occurrence that you don't plan for it, and after it happens, it has a major effect on maybe the person. And for example, now like fire disasters, when you don't plan for it, it's just something that happens, just happens like that, and destroys everything, your properties, life, and all of that. Even natural disasters, you don't know when it's going to happen, it just happens.
Among the most significant risk drivers are growing urban population and increased density, which puts pressure on land and services, increasing settlements in coastal lowlands along unstable slopes and in hazard-prone areas. Some of the predisposing factors includes weak local governance and insufficient participation by local stakeholders in planning and urban management, decaying infrastructure, and unsafe building stocks which may lead to collapsed structures. Others are emergency services, which decreases the capacity for swift response and preparedness. The state realized that a decline of the ecosystem due to human activities such as road construction, pollution in all its ramifications, wetland reclamation, and unsafe resource extraction threaten the ability to provide essential services such as flood regulation. Adverse effects of climate change will lead to increase in temperature and rainfall, with an impact on the intensity and location of floods and other climate disasters. It has therefore developed strategies and policies to address each of these issues as part of an overall vision to make Lagos more resilient and livable. These responsibilities fall squarely on the table of the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA.
When you are looking at drivers, we try as much as possible to put a lot of things in place. The states, through the LASEMA, Ministry of Transportation, we've carried out a lot of sensitization. We've established driving schools. We have a lot of VIOs on the highways, the LASEMA, to enforce our decision. And with that, we are able to reduce appreciably road traffic accidents that could have been resulted due to bad habits of drivers.
Established in 2002, it is the agency responsible for the overall coordination of emergency management in Lagos State, working closely with all stakeholders. The law establishing LASIMA was signed into law in July of 2008 by His Excellency Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN. Its mission statement is to institutionalize an emergency management plan that would foster political commitment, awareness and participation, intersectoral and agency collaboration, and sustainable development, including protection of life, property, and the environment. Its vision is for prompt, effective, and efficient response to emergency disaster management, and the goal is to manage and mitigate emergency disaster in the state and promptly respond to all forms of disaster situation in Lagos State.
Managing disaster is all about planning, and that planning shouldn't take a long time. It's something that we need to manage so fast so that it will not be eating deep into our system. The government and even the NGOs, all of them will now put hands together to tackle that problem. But the problem normally takes life, and anybody that is affected, even the neighbor or the brothers and sisters, they are not always happy about that.
The agency is the umbrella body that coordinates the activities of relevant agencies in prevention and management of disasters in the state. It also develops loss prevention programs and procure necessary technology to mitigate identified emergency situations, responds promptly and quite adequately to, as well as sustained interventions in any form of emergency or disaster. LASIMA also coordinates the activities of stakeholders and NGOs who jointly carry out strategies for emergency in the state. It provides relief materials and financial assistance to victims of various disasters, just as it responds promptly to any emergency such as firefighting, flood control, collapsed buildings, evacuation, search and rescue operations, environmental pollution, road traffic accidents, ocean surges, air crash, and rainstorms, amongst others.
The responsibility of LASIMA is to coordinate all the stakeholders that are important in managing emergency. Who are these stakeholders? When you are talking about stakeholders, we have primary stakeholders, we have secondary stakeholders, and we have tertiary stakeholders. Our primary stakeholders, so to say, are the fire services, are the ambulance services, are the building controlling agency, are the LASIMA. These are very important stakeholders, which means if emergency occur, all of us, all those ones, we have to first of all get to the scene. They call us first responder. They say secondary responder are sort of like NEPA. Like one way or the other, when we now get to the scene of the emergency, we can now call on Mr. So in our second responder, like a NEPA, that, oh, Mr. NEPA, we need your assistance. That the building that we are trying to respond to, where there is a collapse, they should put off the lights, the electricity in that place. So they are our secondary responder. They don't need to get to the scene at the time we are getting to the scene. Why we have all these is for us to be able to manage our resources effectively and efficiently. Secondly, it's not for us to crowd the emergency scene, so that everybody knows what he's doing. The roles and responsibility of all the responders are clear. So we don't need to jump the emergency scene.
Disaster, yes, that is not a good thing. Could be unexpected disasters like flood, disasters like plane can fall inside your house. That's a disaster. Yeah, so it's not a good thing. And we don't pray for that. Yeah.
So how can we manage it?
Managing disaster is planning, prevention. You have to prevent it. Like talk about global warming, climate change. You prevent them by when they say plant trees. You manage floods, you prevent disasters, things like that.
So what can you say about collapse building, fire? Give the examples of...
collapse building, incompetence, I want to do it fast, not doing the right thing, building without building plan approval, and they're not carrying the government along, and there are bad things that the citizens can do, and could result to the negative side of it.
The achievements of LASIMA since inception includes, but not limited to, the construction of the relief and resettlement camp at Agboa, the second relief camp at Igondo in Alimosho local government, which is twice the size of that of Agboa and will house 3,000 persons. Flood and early warnings, as well as the sensitization of council managers of the 57 local government and council development areas on early flood warnings and protocols, advocacy and road shows.
When we are looking at achievements of LASIMA, let's look at the way we are planning emergency today, the way we are responding to emergency today. Today in Lagos State we have emergency number, which is 767 or 112. We have command control in Lagos State, where all the stakeholders that are important in managing emergency are located. So from there, we are able to dispatch team quickly to the scene of emergency. We have relief camp. Relief camp is a camp that was designed and established by the focus administration of Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola to take care of the recovery aspects of disaster management. When we are looking at what we call disaster management, we will be talking about planning, we will be talking about preparedness, we will be talking about response, and we will be talking about the recovery aspect. The recovery aspect is, the Lagos State was so painstaking in handling the recovery aspect in the sense that we now have a relief camp in all the 3 senatorial districts of the state. 2 has been completed now. We've commenced building the one in the 3rd senatorial district of the state. The purpose of this is that whenever there's a disaster and people are displaced, we are going to accommodate them for a certain period where they are going to be taken care of in terms of feeding, in terms of clothing, in terms of vocational training, to integrate them back to the society. And while they are going, the state normally give them some financial assistance. So the state has a relief camp today. And again, today in Lagos State, we have what we call the local emergency management committee, because we realize that the impact of any disaster is to the grassroots. The state has built its resilience from the grassroots, and that is why we have local emergency management committee, where the incident commanders are also the chairman of our local government. And again, we commence training, building the capacity of all our stakeholders. We try to be a watch bearer or watchdog for all our other stakeholders, trying to relate to them, sharing information, and trying to coordinate the response of emergency in the state. So the Lagos State, through LASIMA, has really done well in disaster management. And you can see the way we've been responding to emergency, the Dyna plane crash, the fire disaster in the states. We have emergency response plans. So these are the issues that we've done.
Susceptibility analysis of disaster was carried out in 3 senatorial districts of the state, namely Ekpe, Surulere and Ojo local government areas of hazards identification of local emergency management committees. emergency training on basic life support. The agency trained 287 participants, giving them an insight into cardiopulmonary resuscitation and intermediate life support, coordination of operational and evacuation activities during the recent Dana airline plane crash, construction of burns unit at the Bagada General Hospital. A disaster-resilient city is one where disasters are minimized because the population lives in homes and neighborhoods with organized services and infrastructure that adhere to sensible building codes, without informal settlements built on floodplains or steep slopes.
Billions of naira. Life. You know, when they are talking about life, look at what happened during the bomb blast in January 27, 2002. It's because despite that we have all other structures in place, we have Lasembos, we have the LASNA, but what we learned, and that is why the state established LASEMA, was that the state response was not effectively and efficiently coordinated. We have the ambulance services, yes, fine. We have the LASNA, but all this was not effectively coordinated, effectively and efficiently coordinated. And you can see the mortality and the morbidity that resulted from that singular omission. And that is why LASEMA was established, to be able to coordinate, to be able to plan for any form of emergency holistically. Look at it. It's like if you have ingredients of soup, if you don't cook it properly, will it be effective? Will it sweet? Will it achieve the results? That is what LASEMA is. LASEMA is to coordinate. LASEMA is to ensure that all the primary stakeholders, they are upright and they can respond to emergency effectively and efficiently.
It is a competent and accountable local government that is concerned about sustainable urbanization, that commits the necessary resources to develop capacity to manage and organize itself before, during, and after natural hazard. In order to build a resilient local community, the Hyogo Frameworks for Action HFA 2005 to 2015 prioritizes must be taken into consideration. Build institutional capacity. Ensure that disaster risk reduction is a national and local priority with a strong institutional basis for implementation. Know your risk. Identify, assess and monitor disaster risk and enhance early warning. Build understanding and awareness. Use knowledge, innovation and education to build a culture of safety and resilience at all levels. Reduce risk. Reduce the underlying risk factors through land use, planning environmental, social and economic measures. Be prepared and ready to act. Strengthen disaster preparedness for effective response at all levels. Disaster risk reduction is a team effort that includes the local communities. Sectors such as education, health, transport, environment, research centers, citizens, community groups, the private sector, professional groups, civil society, national government, parliamentarians and international organizations.
We should be able to set in motion a situation where the body that is set up can easily, come out with solution to that disaster. But, in Nigeria, we find out that a lot of the time things, don't work out the way we plan. Then on the other hand, private sector also needs to set up, disaster, something like a disaster fund, so that when disaster happens, they can also swing into action. And we don't need, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a big time fund. For example, if you build a building, if there is a building, you must have certain things in that building, something like fire extinguisher, so that if there's any fire, you can use such equipment to put out such fire. But how many buildings in Nigeria today have fire extinguisher? So that is what we are talking about.
disaster is something we can all manage. It's something that everybody, we all need to, put our, hands on deck. It's everybody's business. It's not only for government, it's not only for the stakeholders. I mean, the owners of private business, is everybody's business. So it's something that we all need to partake in. And if you do that, we find out that at the end of the day, every one of us will enjoy and will benefit from it.
The risk of not paying attention to disaster risk reduction can lead to serious deterioration of the economy and the ecosystem, and a loss of trust by the population and investors. Frequent small and medium impact disasters and single intense events like the Dana plane crash can severely disrupt community lifelines. Business and private investors may shy away from cities with perceived indifference to acting to reducing disaster risk. To overcome the perception that disaster risk management budget competes for scarce resources with other priorities, risk reduction must be an integral part of local government in general. The incentives are stronger when disaster risk management visibly contributes to improved economic and social well-being. From the foregoing, it must be known that accidents do happen and are beyond our control. Disasters and emergency situations are part of everyday living. Everyone must be conscious of safety and security, and the appropriate steps to be taken are to act swiftly to alert those responsible for disaster management by dialing the emergency toll-free numbers 767 and 112 for adequate and quick intervention. Therefore, investing in resilience is an opportunity that must be taken seriously.